We're here for Motorboats Monthly at the 2013 London International Boat Show, having a look at what's new and what's great here at the show. This is Princess's new 52. Now they introduced us to their new 56 at the Southampton Boat Show, and this boat follows very much along the same sort of styling cues. So you've got these great big saloon windows here, these big hull windows down on the side here, but a big change for Princess happens on board, and let me show you what I mean. Now Princess are very much a company that believes in evolution rather than revolution. They tend to just evolve their boats step by step. Now this boat replaces the 50 in the range, but they've actually gone for quite a different layout, and the big difference with this boat, and it's a first for Princess, is they put the galley just here. So rather than having it further forward in the boat, or indeed downstairs as they did on their 50 that this boat replaces, it's now back here aft, where it can serve the cockpit just as easily as it can serve the rest of the accommodation. So with the galley back here, that moves the saloon further forward, of course, and it's up a couple of steps as well, which gives tremendous visibility combined with these huge side windows. Means that when you're up here, it almost feels like you're outside. But the big advantage of putting the galley back here and a saloon up here is when you go down here. So with the galley all the way aft and the saloon raised up, what that gives is a tremendous amount of volume down here to use as sleeping cabins. So where the old 50 had bunk beds in the guest cabin, this one's got a good pair of side-by-side twins. There's a great forward cabin, and that's as big as an owner's cabin in many boats for their size, but the real treat is back here in the mid cabin. This owner's cabin back in the middle of the boat is absolutely palatial. Because they've got the raised saloon above us here, which is a couple of steps up, it gives fantastic headroom right across the whole width of this cabin, and the floor as well is completely flat. Just like the 56, you've got these huge hull windows with no mullions, which gives a fantastic view out, and the whole ambience of this cabin is terrific. It feels like a cabin from a much bigger boat. So it's not just inside that this boat benefits from so much extra space over the 50. Up here as well, it's a much bigger boat, and they've done it by aping the 56 and giving it a similar style of flybridge. So rather than on the 50 where you had the sunbed at the back and the seating at the front, what they've done with this is create a massive seating area around this big table at the back. And then rather than the sunbed, you've got this L-shaped seating area here, and as you can see, it infills, so if you want to sunbathe, you can do that as well. And it means that this whole area becomes a really good livable area, not just for sunbathing, but just for socialising and generally having a good time on. Princess are fitting this boat with either Volvo or Caterpillar engines on conventional shaft drive, and they'll be between about 600 and 700 horsepower, and this boat's starting off at £680,000, including the VAT. This is Sunseeker's brand new San Remo, and it's designed to bridge the gap between their Portofino range and their larger Predator range. But the styling very much echoes their latest Portofino 40, which we saw earlier last year. It's got similar carbon fibre wrapped spars around the windows and these engine vents here, and it's very much got that lovely Sunseeker look to it. But it's a much bigger boat on board, and if we pop on board, I'll show you what I mean. So here in the cockpit is where you see the first big change between this and the Portofino 40. Obviously it's a much bigger boat, but it has things like, for example, underneath the sunbed here there's a large garage for a tender. And the hardtop here as well, rather than having the soft roof, it's got a great big glass solid sliding section. And if we look at this closely, you can see this is actually carbon fibre. It's not just a carbon fibre look, it's real carbon fibre. And that does a couple of things. It keeps the weight down high up, so it lowers the centre of gravity. And it also means this is much less resistant to changes in size due to heat, so it doesn't tend to bind quite as much. But I think more importantly, it looks absolutely fantastic. This area here is very much like the Portofino 40 in that what they've done is they've raised the floor to give really good headroom in the mid cabin. But they've got this double forward facing seat here, so your crew can sit and look forward. It's a very comfortable place to be, and in fact this raised floor works really well. It's still a very comfortable place to sit and enjoy the boat. So down here, Sunseeker put in this lovely big living space, but they've recognised that a lot of these boats go to the Mediterranean and people don't use this area very much. So what you can have is you can lose this big dinette area here, just have a big settee across there, and that will actually make into a bed, and there's a partition that comes across here, and that basically gives you a 3-cabin layout down here, which for a boat of around 50 feet in terms of sports boats is very good. Over on this size boat there's a galley area here, and up the front you've got a nice guest cabin that's got 2 single berths that scissor together to make a double. But the really nice area on this boat is back aft. Let me show you the mid cabin. So down here is where you really see the benefit of that raised seating area up in the cockpit. You've got fantastic headroom as you come into this cabin. You've got this nice little settee down here. And just like on the Portofino, they're putting big hull windows into these boats. So you've got nice big windows on both sides of the boat, central double bed, and it just feels like a really big palatial cabin. They're running this boat on IPS drives. It's got the IPS 600, which are 435 horsepower each. That's going to give the boat, they reckon, about 30 knots, and she's coming in at about £650,000, including the VAT. This is the new Prestige 450. And the really interesting thing about this boat is just how much space they've got on it. It starts up here with this absolutely massive flybridge, but if you take a look downstairs, it really gets very clever indeed. But it's down here that it all starts to get particularly clever. Just like the Princess 52, they've gone for a galley aft arrangement, so that's just inside the saloon doors, just behind me here. Then you've got a raised saloon in the centre of the boat. And further forward, it's all fairly conventional. You've got a forward cabin that's got a central double bed that splits out for a scissor berth, and that's got its own ensuite. But where this boat really differs from any other 45-foot flybridge boat that I've seen recently is over here, because there's a completely separate stairwell here, and this takes us down to the owner's cabin. As I say, this really is absolutely unique. It's slightly compromised by areas like this, but what it gives you is a fantastic separate owner's cabin. It's totally separate from the rest of the accommodation. It's got its own ensuite, and it's got this wonderful huge bed here. You can walk down either side of it. There's big picture windows at each end, and it just really feels like the sort of feature you expect to find on a much bigger boat. They've got this boat running IPS drives, and the interesting thing is they use jack shafts so that the IPS is here, and it allows them, rather than having the engine on top, to actually move it slightly forward, and that helps with the weight distribution in the boat and keeps the weight more towards the centre of the boat. You can have either IPS 500 or IPS 600, which are 370 or 435 horsepower each, and she's starting off at around £400,000. Now, we tested the Bavaria 420 Virtus flybridge last year and came away very impressed by that boat. This is its sister. This is the 420 Virtus Coupe. And the difference with this boat is up above us here, because rather than having a flybridge, it has this large glass roof section here, which, as you can see at the push of a button, will slide back and flood this area with air as well as light. Now, Bavaria haven't stopped at that. They've actually left the steps in for the flybridge, and what they've done is use the roof section back here to create a nice sunbathing area. This is the Broome 395. Now, it's not a new boat, it's a revamp of the previous 395, but Broome have been putting some serious investment into this boat and really raising their game with it. And on the outside, the most obvious signs of that are the glazing, which is now flush fitting across here and across here, and at the back of the boat as well, it's got very big windows for the aft cabin. But on board, they've made quite a few subtle changes as well. Up here in the cockpit, rather than having two individual seats, what they've done is put this bench seat here and moved it over to the starboard side. And what that's done is it's given more room on this side of the cockpit to enable them to put a small wet bar in as well. The other feature this has got is a backrest that flips over, so that you can have this as additional seating when you're at rest. So down here in the saloon, they've gone for a slightly more contemporary look to the upholstery and to the woodwork. Everything's a little bit sharper edged and a little bit more modern. They've also put these big skylights in the roof just here, which let a lot more light into the boat and again just brighten everything up. And then down here in the galley, you've got the big U-shaped area just here. Normally you'd have a dinette opposite, but they're also doing an option of what they call a split galley, and that gives you the ability to have a great big fridge freezer on this side, or a dishwasher, or a side-by-side fridge and freezer if you prefer. Back here in the aft cabin, it's traditional Broome. You've got this lovely great big space here, central double bed, but again you've got the more contemporary woodwork in here, and those great big windows in the transom really throw a lot of light into here as well. The other thing they're doing is they're putting big Volvo D6 330 engines into these boats, and that'll take the speed up to a very untraditional 30 knots, which again extends the appeal in the marketplace. The price on this one, as you see it here, is about £400,000, including VAT. Now, we're on the Sealine SC35. Of course, this is nothing new. This boat's been an old favourite of ours for a long time. But what is new is this wood finish, because Sealine have been really trying to up their game of late. And where they've always put laminates on this boat before, they're now doing this option, which is a high gloss walnut. It's about £10,000, but it looks fantastic, and it's not just this wood finish, it's the detailing that goes with it. So for example, they've got this nice leather section in the centre here, and then it's nicely finished around the edges here. You've got stainless steel insets just here. There's little walnut fillets in the ceiling here, and it really lifts the ambience of this boat and transforms it, and it brings it up to what it always should have been. And now, as the saying has it, for something completely different. This is a Hackercraft 26 Sportabout, and it's completely built out of mahogany. The hull, the deck, even the stringers are all mahogany. It's an American-built boat. They've been building these since 1908, and it's got a Crusader 350 horsepower engine in it, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I love all the period features on this boat. You've got these wonderful old cream dials here. There's pull switches here for the lights and other bits and pieces. And even the controls for this boat are old-fashioned. This is actually the gear shift here, so you've got forward, neutral, reverse, and a hand throttle on this side that just pulls out of the dash like the choke on an old Rolls-Royce. Back aft here, you've got this nice seating area, and there's a little bit of storage up further forward as well. But again, it's the detailing. It's this beautiful polished wooden floor, and even things like all these screw heads. If you look at them, every single one lines up. It's absolutely incredible. Back under the aft deck here, there's a 350 horsepower V8 Crusader engine. And again, the detailing is absolutely exquisite. They take about 7 months to build these boats, and the price of this one, as you see it here, is about £190,000. Larson are celebrating 100 years of boat building, and this is their birthday present to themselves. It's the Larson All-American 23. And what they're doing with this boat is they're evoking some of the boats from their past and from their back catalogue. So to that end, it's got very retro styling on the outside with this stubby windscreen here and this thin rimmed steering wheel just here. But it's got some really great details as well. Up here on the front, for example, they've put this little table in here that demounts. It just makes the whole thing very usable. Price-wise, these boats are starting off at about £45,000. This particular boat here has got a 350 Magnum engine and quite a lot of extras. It's coming out at about 56. Now, last year we tested the Ocean Master 630 and concluded it was an absolutely brilliant boat with only one flaw. Because it's a complete walk-around boat, the cabin floor was so low that it's impossible to actually lie down and sleep in it. Now, this is Ocean Master's answer. It's the 640, and what it does is it does away with that forward walk-around section and puts a deck up here instead, and what that does, of course, is gives a lot more room inside the cabin. Now, this area of the cockpit is not dissimilar to the 630 that we tested. You've got a couple of seats here that swivel round to join in the party at the back, and there's a table that can sit in here. This aft seat as well will pull out into a sunbathing area, which is quite a nice feature. Further forward, of course, it's different. You've lost that walk-around idea that the previous boat had, and of course the sunken foredeck area. But what it has got is a nice flat top to the cabin, so you've got a nice bit of space up there for sunbathing. And of course the big advantage is when we go downstairs. So it's down here that it's all changed. I really like the 630, but I had to admit that the cabin is a little bit useless. It was okay for putting gear in, but you couldn't really sleep in it because about here the ceiling dropped and it was just far too low over the bed. Now with this, you've got the headroom all the way forward. It gives you a good seating area here. It means you can turn this into a double bed and sleep on it comfortably, and it really extends the use of this boat. Now, what hasn't changed on this boat is the astonishing value for money. They're doing a deal here at the show with this boat with a 100 horsepower outboard engine, fully rigged and ready to go, at just over £30,000 including VAT. It's a lot of boat for the money.